The Milwaukee Brewers are the best team in baseball. Yes, you heard that right. We're well into August, and the Brewers currently hold the best record in all of Major League Baseball. Even in a time where most fans believe the sport is dominated by large market teams, a team with the same payroll as the Colorado Rockies has the best winning percentage in the league. The Brewers, unsurprisingly due to this fact, have had a very productive offense this year. They rank 5th in runs scored, which is a shocking stat. On paper, their lineup doesn't look too threatening. Not even a single player on this team has an OPS above 800, yet they're one of the best offenses in the league at scoring runs? How? Well, a lot of people draw this up to the Brewers' magic. They do this thing every single year. But this isn't magic, their secret lies in their base running. By the way, most of you watching this video are not subscribed, so if you enjoy the video I would appreciate it, as it's the best way to support the channel. This graph highlights one of the most important dynamics behind the Brewers' success this season, their balance between aggressiveness and efficiency on the bases when the ball is in play. On the horizontal axis, we have aggressiveness, measured by how often the team tries to take an extra base compared to what's expected. The further right a team is, the more often they push the envelope. On the vertical axis is efficiency, defined by how often those attempts are successful, measured by the percentage of runners who are safe when taking an extra base on balls in play. Put simply, this graph shows who's being aggressive on the bases and who's actually pulling it off. The Brewers, as you can see, are the second most aggressive team in the league this year with an attempt rate above expected of around 3%. They're taking more risks on the base paths than every other team except the Tigers. Even though they're taking these risks, they are rarely thrown out trying to take an extra base. They have a safe rate of over 99%, when no other team is even above 98%. It's because of this relationship why the Brewers have gained an estimated 12.5 runs on offense just by taking more extra bases than other teams. Now you might be wondering, how do we settle on this 12.5 runs number? This comes from extra bases taken run value. There are 3 outcomes that can happen when an extra base opportunity presents itself. Say a runner is on first and the ball is hit into the outfield for a single. Obviously, the runner on first will take second, but third base is not a guarantee. This is considered taking an extra base. The runner could hold at second, he could go for third and be safe, or he could go for third and be out. Safe creates a positive value for the offense, holding can create a neutral or slightly negative, and out will be a negative value for the offense. Using inputs from the play like runner's speed, the outfielder's arm, the runner's position, and the outfielder's distance from the ball and bases, you can assign run values to each outcome here. The Brewers have only been thrown out 3 times this year when trying to take an extra base. That is the least in the league. These outs have contributed -3 runs on the base paths. They have accumulated -9 runs holding, which is the closest number to 0 in the league in that category, and they have gained 24 runs from safely advancing to the extra base, which is the 4th best in the league. When you add these up, you get their overall extra bases taken run value, which is 12.5, the most in the league by far. 4 of their players are in the top 26 in this stat. None of them are crazy high, as Sal Frelick ranks the highest at 18th, but having 4 in the top 26 is pretty good. Sal Frelick, Christian Yelich, Jackson Chourio, and Bryce Terang make up these top-end base runners. On the flip side, they only have 1 player that's in the bottom 100, and that is their catcher, William Contreras, which is pretty normal for a team's catcher. This is a team effort, unlike the Diamondbacks, who rank 4th in extra bases taken run value with 6.5. 5.2 of that comes from the league leader in the stat and possibly one of the best base runners of all time, Corbin Carroll, which really means the rest of the team has only contributed 1.3 runs to the total. The Brewers are truly doing this as a team. This aggressive and decisive base running is only one part of the reason for the Brewers' running success this year. They're doing something that we haven't seen for over a decade, and it's something that we really never think about. They say that the double play is the pitcher's best friend, so it must be a batter's worst nightmare. Believe it or not, a double play is one of the worst outcomes that can happen for a batter in most scenarios. 2 outs in 1 play is typically not a good thing for the offense. The Brewers this year are grounding into record low double plays. In their first 111 games this year, they've grounded into just 59 double plays, which is the lowest total we have seen in the past 10 years among teams with an on-base percentage of at least .330. On-base percentage matters because you have to have a runner on base to ground into a double play. This stat is very interesting. And if you're wondering how I even found that stat, it's thanks to Stahead. Stahead is the search tool built by the same folks who run Baseball Reference, and it lets you slice the data in any way you want. Want to know which team since 2016 grounded into the fewest double plays in the first 111 games of a season while maintaining a high on-base percentage? Obviously, this isn't a preset stat, but I built this custom query in seconds using Stahead. It's also not just for obscure trivia. It helps you find patterns, test theories, and find things that you wouldn't normally discover on the surface. If you're into sports research, whether you're making content like this, into fantasy sports, or just trying to settle an argument, Stathead is for you. Use the link in the description and my code WILYTICS, WILYTICS, for 20% off to start digging into the numbers for yourself. The Brewers, on paper, should be near the top of the league in double plays. They are second in the league in on-base percentage, with most of those outcomes being singles or walks, and they also have the fourth highest ground ball rate. Lots of runners on first and lots of ground balls should lead to a lot of double plays, but they have grounded into the second least this year. The secret is their speed. The Brewers are the second fastest team in MLB this year by average sprint speed, only behind the Phillies. They have speed in their outfield spots with Sal Frelick and Jackson Chourio. They have speed in the infield with Bryce Terang and Joey Ortiz. They even have the fastest DH in the league in Christian Yelich. They're just a team that's going to be hard to double up, which is certainly a good thing. If you will allow me, I will now go on a tangent about double plays. Most stats we use today, both simple and advanced, don't take into account the negative value that double plays provide. Batting average, OPS, and even WOBA doesn't even include it. There are no inputs to account for the negative impact of double plays. Every out is treated as the same. This seemingly assumes that avoiding double plays isn't a real skill, when it obviously is. If you take Junior Caminero, for example, he has a WOBA of 333, and Jackson Chourio has a WOBA of 335. Caminero has a significantly higher OPS than Chourio, though these stats don't take into account that 26 of the outs that Caminero made this year were double plays, the most in the league by far. That's 52 outs on those 26 plays. Chourio, on the other hand, only has grounded into 10 double plays. Caminero hits a lot of hard ground balls and is pretty slow, with a sprint speed in the 28th percentile. So even though their WOBAs are similar, Caminero has been costing his team more outs and ultimately more runs. Each double play on average leads to a negative 0.85 change in run expectancy, which is around 3 times worse than a single out. And over the course of a full season, this can really impact a team's run differential. For example, last season, over the course of a full 162, the Orioles gained an estimated 10 runs by avoiding double plays versus the average team. Meanwhile, the Rockies lost an estimated 7.9 runs versus the average thanks to double plays. This is an 18-run swing comparing the Orioles to the Rockies just by beating out or avoiding double plays, which translates to around 1 to 2 wins over the course of a full season, which is a pretty significant amount just talking about double plays. Hopefully, this double play tangent wasn't useless, as it's critical to understand the importance of double play avoidance, even though most hitting stats don't even take it into account. The Brewers take full advantage of this. But this is not the end. If you thought it was, you're silly. We haven't even talked about the biggest base running stat ever invented, and possibly the oldest, the stolen base. Yes, the Brewers do well in this category as well. Here is another graph, this time relating stolen bases to stolen base success rate. The red dotted line represents the average stolen base success rate. The Brewers have the second highest total of stolen bases this year. In doing so, they've managed to stay around the league average mark in terms of efficiency, which makes that volume pretty valuable. The Brewers have 7 players this year that have reached double-digit stolen base totals. No other team even has 6 this year. There are a few teams with 5, and even with those teams, there's typically a fall-off after the last guy with double digits. The Brewers' Bryce Terang, Jackson Chourio, Sal Frelick, Christian Yelich, Isaac Collins, Joey Ortiz, and Caleb Durbin by themselves might not be elite base stealers, but together they make one of the most threatening base stealing teams we have seen recently. The stolen base certainly hasn't contributed as much as the other 2 areas we've talked about, but it has given the Brewers an estimated 1.6 runs this year over the average team, which is the 8th most in the league. This number comes from weighted stolen base runs, which takes the team's stolen base total and caught stealing total and estimates how many runs they have lost or gained because of it. For context, there are 17 teams this year that are actually losing runs due to their stolen base attempts, making the Brewers' advantage stand out even more. This aggressive and efficient approach is something that the Brewers have done for a while. They rank second overall in base running runs over the past 3 seasons, which is essentially a stat that combines the stolen base value with the extra bases value that we've talked about before. This year, they have a huge lead in this stat with 13.4 runs. In second are the Texas Rangers with 8.8. Meanwhile, the Giants have been the worst base runners this year with negative 7.3 base running runs. That is a 20-run swing for the Brewers, which can definitely impact a team's record in the regular season. The Brewers are on pace to post roughly 20 base running runs, which would be good enough for the second best team season in the StatCast era. The team that they would pass for second place was the Brewers last year. The Brewers are doing it again this year. They seemingly continue to just be good every single year, and base running is ultimately their biggest secret. But the only question we have left to answer, why doesn't it translate to October? It seems like the Brewers are a broken record. Everyone is low on them before the season. A lot of people don't think they'll make the playoffs. They go on to play really well during the regular season, usually winning the National League Central. They get a playoff berth, and then they lose rather quickly. But why is that? Is it just a coincidence and bad luck? Or is that the expected outcome with this kind of strategy? Let's start before the season. When taking a look at this roster, specifically the offense, most people aren't going to be into the Brewers on paper. They don't have a ton of players that are going to post high OPSs, which is largely what people care about when making preseason predictions. Nobody is really asking themselves, how good is this team going to be on the base paths? Are they going to avoid double plays? Is this team going to take more extra bases than every other team? Those aren't questions that people normally ask themselves. And I don't really blame them for that, as hitting usually overtakes these kinds of things, unless you are really good at it like the Milwaukee Brewers are. But why doesn't it work in the playoffs? Well, as some people say, in the playoffs, you can throw the analytics out. This is not 100% true, but it's not entirely false either. The playoffs consist of 3-game series, 5-game series, and at most 7-game series. Analytics' best friend most of the time is a large sample. The playoffs are a small sample. 162 games in the regular season versus 3 games in the playoffs is a huge difference. Variance is key in the playoffs. Teams with ace starting pitchers that can dominate a single game, teams with big power hitters that can change the game with one swing of the bat, could be more valuable in these small samples. Plays that have big win probability swings are king in single game samples. Where do those come from? On offense, typically home runs. Unless Andrew Vaughn keeps on doing what he's doing this year, the Brewers don't really have that. Now, this is not to say that they're going to be bad in the playoffs this year. This is just to say that in the playoffs, volatility is in play much more than it is in the regular season. So overall, the Brewers might not lead the league in home runs or have superstars in the lineup, but their success certainly isn't a fluke, and it certainly isn't magic. They've built a winning formula behind the ability to get on base, elite base running, and an ability to squeeze every ounce of value from the margins of the game. It's the kind of strategy that probably won't get you on the highlight reels, but over the course of a season, it can certainly build a contender. And while there are questions about how that style holds up in October, there's no denying what it's done for them so far this year. They're outplaying teams like the Dodgers, who everyone thought was going to run away with it this year. And the whole postseason success thing? Who knows? That could all change this postseason. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.